Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you a great way to level up your artwork by creating shading with ink. That's right, I'm going to show you how to make drawings like these using a pen. Our goal here is to create value in our artwork. Value is how light or dark something is in a drawing. Usually we think about this with shading, and usually it's easiest to do shading with a blendable material like charcoal or a pencil. But today I'm going to show you 4 ways to shade with ink. There are 2 types of pens that you could use for an ink drawing. The first type is a ballpoint pen, which means there's literally a metal ball at the end of it that rotates to let ink through. This type of pen is great for detailed work. And the other type is a felt tip pen that's kind of like a marker tip. It's made of felt. I'm going to be using a felt tip pen today. My favorite are these Papermate Flare pens. To show you guys how to do ink shading, I'm going to use this Creative Commons picture of Taylor Swift, and I'm going to draw her using 4 different ink shading styles. Our first ink shading technique is called hatching. Hatching is done by creating a series of repeating lines that all go the same direction. To do this, you just draw lines anywhere that you see shadows, and the closer together they are, the darker your value will be. So right here, I'm shading down the side of Miss Taylor's face, and I'm trying to keep my lines pretty far apart because this will become a lighter value later on. The next ink shading technique that we are going to do today is called cross hatching. It's very similar to hatching, except you can make your lines go in any direction. So you can cross them over each other to create darker values. So this time I'm going to be going down the side of her face multiple directions to create that shadow. This is a really good exercise if you struggle with creating dark values in your artwork, because using a felt tip pen will force you to go dark with your values. Let's do a side-by-side comparison of hatching and cross hatching. There are a few different techniques that you could use when hatching or cross hatching. You could start by shading in everywhere that's in shadow with a really light value, so lines that are really far apart, and then go in and layer more over top for darker areas. Or another strategy is to go in and define your darkest dark. So in my cross hatching drawing, that shadow underneath her chin is my darkest dark. And now that that's defined, I know how every other value can compare to that and how dense to make my marks. It's important to trust the process when you're doing any kind of ink shading, because you're using black right on that white paper. It's going to look too dark until you get all the values in and you can see them all against each other. Here's what a more detailed ballpoint pen drawing would look like with cross hatching. The next ink shading technique is called stippling, and it means shading with dots. This is one of the most beginner-friendly techniques, and it turns out one of the most realistic. All of these ink shading techniques require the same exact strategy, and that strategy is the more dense your marks are, the darker the value will be. Density means how close together things are. So the closer together I make my dots, the darker the value will be. The fourth ink shading technique I'm going to show you is called scumbling, also known as scribbling. For this technique, I recommend that you go in and define some of those really important lines before you start, because they can get lost as you do your scribbling. It's easy to get carried away when you're doing this technique and to make your scribbles really big. But the smaller you make them, the more detailed and photorealistic these drawings can look. Here's an example of a ballpoint pen drawing using scumbling. Let's compare stippling and scumbling side by side. These are actually very similar techniques because you're still just making a repeated series of marks on your page. But with stippling, obviously it's dots, and with scumbling, it's more scribbles. But the key here is to take your time. So with scumbling, it's very, very likely that you'll go too fast and that you will kind of overdo it. But it's really important that you take your time and remember that my video is sped up a lot. Okay, this is 4 times faster than it was when I actually did it. Value is one of the 7 elements of art, and shading is only one of the many skills that you need to be a good artist. I think as a beginning artist, it's okay to develop different skills at the same time. You don't need to get your proportions completely correct before you learn how to do ink shading. One thing that you can do to practice this would be to trace your initial image. I'm not saying to go and trace it and then post it online and say that you made it yourself, but if you want to practice ink shading, that is a really good place to start. If you like this video, remember to leave a like and subscribe if you would like to level up your art skills even more. Which tailor do you think turned out the best? If you're an art teacher and you'd like to do this project with your class, I created a slideshow and a worksheet that go with it. This project is available in my TPT shop, and the link is in the description of this video. Thanks for watching.